The crystal spires of Valora Prime gleamed under the light of their twin suns, casting rainbow patterns across the methane clouds that drifted through the upper atmosphere. Shalveth stood at her communications console, her translucent body pulsing with colors that betrayed her growing panic. The console display showed nothing but red warnings and system failures. "Minister, we've lost contact with the outer defense platforms," she reported, her voice crystallizing the air around her. "The swarm has broken through the second orbital ring." Minister Velthas moved to the observation window, his elderly form dimming with despair. Outside, the darkness of space was filled with moving shapes. They looked like insects, but each one was the size of a small building. The Krillian swarm had arrived 3 days ago, and the Valerian defense fleet was already reduced to scattered remnants. "Send the distress call," Velthas said quietly. "Contact the Arxian Collective. They are our allies. They will come." Shalveth's fingers danced across the controls, her training taking over despite the fear coursing through her. She composed the message in standard galactic common, explaining their situation and requesting immediate military assistance. The Arxians were a powerful species with a strong fleet. They would help. They had to. She transmitted the message on the primary emergency frequency. Then she waited. 1 minute passed, then 5, then 10. "No response, Minister," she said, her colors shifting to deep purple with worry. "Try again," Velthas ordered. "Use all available frequencies." Shalveth nodded and began broadcasting on every channel she could access. Standard diplomatic frequencies, commercial channels, even the old emergency networks that hadn't been used in centuries. The ancient systems were barely functional, their protocols outdated and strange, but desperation drove her to try everything. The building shook as something massive struck the planetary shields. Warning alarms screamed throughout the command center. On the displays, Shalveth watched as another of their orbital platforms exploded in silence. The swarm was getting closer. "Minister, we need to evacuate the capital," someone shouted from across the room. "Not until we get a response," Velthas replied firmly. "Our people need hope. They need to know help is coming." Shalveth continued transmitting, cycling through frequencies automatically now. Most species in the galaxy were peaceful. They had been for thousands of years. The Great Wars were ancient history, stories told to children. No one maintained large military forces anymore. It was unnecessary. Civilized beings talked through their problems, but the Krillian swarm didn't talk. They consumed. They stripped worlds of resources and moved on, leaving dead planets in their wake. And they were winning. Another explosion rocked the building. Shalveth gripped her console to stay upright. Her people's defensive weapons were designed to disable ships, not destroy them. Energy dampeners and shield disruptors meant to stop vessels without causing harm. Such weapons were useless against an enemy that felt no fear and accepted no surrender. "Still no response from the Arxians," she reported. "They may not be in range, or their receivers might be damaged." "Keep trying," Velthas said, but his colors had faded to almost gray. Even he was losing hope. Hours passed. The swarm descended on the planet's surface, their landing craft tearing through the atmosphere like meteors. Cities reported attacks. The crystalline beings of Valora had no ground forces, no weapons designed to fight. They had peacekeepers and emergency responders, but no soldiers. Shalveth's console suddenly chirped with an incoming signal. Her colors flashed bright yellow with excitement. "Minister, I'm receiving a response." The entire command center fell silent. Everyone turned to look at her. "It's not the Arxians," she said slowly, examining the signal. "It's coming from... I don't recognize the origin. The signal pattern doesn't match any known species. Can you translate it?" Velthas asked, moving quickly to her station. "The linguistic matrix is working on it," Shalveth replied. "The language is completely unknown. It's not even close to any galactic language family. Wait, I'm getting something." The translation appeared on her screen, rough and probably inaccurate, but readable. "Unknown species. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Terran Space Force. We have received your distress call. We are not your allies, but we are coming anyway. Hold on. Help is coming." Shalveth stared at the message. "Terran?" She accessed the galactic database quickly, searching for any reference to this species. "Minister, I found them. They're listed as a primitive species from Sector 773. They're from a planet called Earth, a Class 12 death world." The room fell silent again, but this time the silence was different. Class 12 death worlds were nightmare planets, High gravity, violent weather, aggressive predator species, deadly diseases, and toxic environments. They were planets that killed anyone who tried to land on them. No civilized species evolved on such worlds because survival was impossible. That's impossible, someone said. Nothing intelligent can evolve on a Class 12 world. The database says they're pre-spaceflight, another voice added. Last survey was 800 cycles ago. They shouldn't have faster-than-light travel yet. Velthus looked at the message on the screen, then at the displays showing the swarm destroying their world. I don't care what they are, he said firmly. If they can help us, we accept. Shalaveth, send them our tactical data, everything we have on the swarm. She transmitted the information immediately. The response came back within minutes. Received. ETA to your system is 4 hours. Admiral Chen recommends evacuating civilians from coastal areas and preparing shelters underground. We are bringing kinetic weapons. There will be debris, kinetic weapons. Shalveth checked the translation twice. Surely that was wrong. Kinetic weapons were ancient technology, crude things that threw physical projectiles. No advanced species use such primitive tools anymore. What kind of species still uses kinetic weapons? Someone asked the question everyone was thinking. The kind that survives on a Class 12 death world, Velthus said quietly. Begin evacuations. If these Terrans are willing to help us, then we will trust them. We have no other choice. Shalveth sent confirmation and began coordinating evacuation efforts with the city centers. As she worked, she kept one display focused on the edge of their solar system, watching for any sign of the approaching fleet. 4 hours felt like forever. The swarm continued its assault, landing more forces on the surface. Reports came in of cities being overrun, of people fleeing into the wilderness. The Valerian ships that remained fought bravely but uselessly, their weapons barely slowing the enemy. Then, exactly 4 hours after the first message, Shalveth's sensors screamed with alerts. Multiple contacts emerging from faster-than-light travel, she announced. They're massive, Minister. Much larger than our vessels. Energy signatures are... I've never seen readings like this. Are they the Terrans? Velthus asked. Confirming identity now, Shalveth replied. Yes, Minister. They're hailing us. Put them through. A voice filled the command center, speaking through the translation system. Valoran vessels, this is Admiral Chen. We've got your position. We see the swarm. Permission to engage? Velthas looked around at his people, at the displays showing their dying world, at the choice that was no choice at all. Permission granted, Admiral. And thank you. Don't thank us yet, Chen replied. Just stay out of our way. This is going to get loud. The communication ended. On Shalveth's sensors, she watched as the Terran fleet moved forward, accelerating toward the swarm with a speed and purpose that seemed almost aggressive. The readings from their ships showed power levels that shouldn't be possible. Weapons charging that registered as actual physical projectiles instead of energy beams. What kind of species are these Terrans? Someone whispered. Shalveth didn't answer. She simply watched the sensors and waited to find out. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UTSF Indomitable, studying the tactical displays with experienced eyes. The swarm ships filled the space around Valora Prime like a plague of locusts. She had seen the intelligence reports, read the translations of Valerian military doctrine, and understood immediately why these people were losing. They fight like they're afraid to hurt anyone, she muttered. Ma'am, Commander Park asked from the weapons station. The Valerians. Their weapons are designed to disable, not destroy. They're trying to be humane to an enemy that's eating their planet. Chen shook her head. Tactical, give me a count on enemy vessels. 217 confirmed swarm ships in orbit, Admiral, ranging from frigate to dreadnought size. We're also detecting landing craft on the surface, at least 500 that we can count. And how many ships do we have? 37, ma'am. Chen smiled slightly. Then we've got them outnumbered. Park looked at her with surprise, then grinned. Yes, ma'am. All ships, battle formation Delta 7. Target priority is the largest vessels first. Fire at will on my mark. Let's show these bugs what a real military looks like. The human fleet spread out, each ship moving to its designated position. The swarm noticed them finally, several of the insect-like vessels turning to face this new threat. They didn't seem concerned. Why would they be? The swarm had overwhelmed every species it encountered through sheer numbers, but they had never encountered humans before. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Valerian Command Center, the communications officer reported. Put them through. The translation came through with a slight delay. Admiral Chen, we are detecting weapons charging on your vessels. The energy signatures suggest kinetic projectiles. Surely this is a sensor error. No error, Velaran Command, Chen replied. That's exactly what we're using. There was a long pause. But kinetic weapons are primitive technology. No civilized species has used such weapons in thousands of years. Then I guess we're not civilized, Chen said. Now please clear your remaining ships from the combat zone. This is going to get messy. She cut the connection and focused on the tactical display. The swarm ships were moving now, accelerating toward the human fleet. They moved in swarms, just like their name suggested, with no real formation or strategy. Just overwhelming numbers. All ships mark targets, Chen ordered. Fire! The Indomitable shuddered as its railguns fired. Depleted uranium slugs the size of cars shot through space at a significant fraction of light speed. The rounds crossed the distance in seconds and slammed into the lead swarm vessels. The effect was devastating. The organic hulls of the swarm ships, designed to absorb and dissipate energy weapons, had no defense against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The slugs punched completely through the first ship, through the second behind it, and partially into a third before finally stopping. All three ships broke apart, their organic material unable to handle the catastrophic damage. Across the fleet, the same scene repeated 37 times. The first volley from the human ships destroyed or crippled nearly 70 swarm vessels. The space around Valora Prime lit up with explosions as organic matter met kinetic energy. On Valora Prime, Shalveth watched her sensors in complete shock. In 15 seconds, the Terrans had destroyed more swarm ships than the entire Valerian fleet had managed in 3 days. Minister, are you seeing this? She asked, her colors flashing with confusion and awe. Velthus nodded slowly, unable to speak. The swarm adapted quickly, as they always did. The remaining ships scattered, trying to present multiple targets and swarm the human vessels. They learned from the first volley that staying in groups was death, but the humans adapted faster. The fleet split into smaller groups, each one moving with precision that suggested years of combat experience. The Terrans didn't just shoot at targets, they predicted where the swarm ships would go, led their targets and fired into empty space that became filled with enemy vessels a moment later. They're not just fighting, Veltas said quietly. They're hunting. The swarm ships reached the human fleet and opened fire with their bioplasma weapons. The green energy splashed across the Terran shields, causing them to flare bright but not fail. The human vessels were built heavy, designed to take punishment, and they gave back more than they received. Missiles launched from the Terran ships, hundreds of them, each one tracking a different target. The swarm tried to shoot them down, but there were too many. The missiles impacted, and the space around Valora Prime turned into a fireworks display of death. Admiral, swarm forces are attempting to flank us from the dark side of the planet, Park reported. Let them come. Destroyer Group 3, swing around and intercept. Box them in. The human destroyers, smaller and faster than the capital ships, moved with incredible speed. They appeared behind the flanking swarm force and opened fire with point defense cannons. The rapid-fire weapons shredded the smaller swarm ships like paper. Shalveth tried to understand what she was watching. The Terrans fought with a combination of brutality and precision that seemed impossible. They didn't hesitate. They didn't try to minimize damage. They aimed to kill, and they did it with terrifying efficiency. Minister, the Terran flagship is moving toward the swarm command ship, she reported. The swarm command ship was massive, easily 3 times the size of any human vessel. It was the hive ship, the core of the swarm's collective intelligence. Taking it down would cripple the entire invasion force. The Indomitable accelerated directly toward it, ignoring the smaller swarm vessels that tried to intercept. Point defense systems shot down incoming plasma blasts and biomissiles. The ship's heavy armor absorbed hits that would have disabled Valerian vessels. Bring us in close, Chen ordered. Charge the main cannon. The Indomitable's primary weapon was a coil gun that ran the entire length of the ship. It took enormous power to fire and could only be used a few times before overheating. But when it fired, nothing could stand against it. The weapon charged, drawing power from the ship's reactor. The lights on the bridge dimmed slightly as energy was redirected. Target locked, Admiral. Fire. The main cannon fired with a flash of blue light. The electromagnetic coils propelled a tungsten rod the size of a telephone pole at speeds that made the railgun rounds look slow. The rod struck the swarm command ship's central mass and kept going, punching completely through the organic vessel from one end to the other. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the command ship began to come apart, its biological systems failing as the massive wound caused catastrophic system failures throughout its structure. Secondary explosions rippled across its hull as internal organs ruptured and organic fuel ignited. The ship broke into 3 large pieces and dozens of smaller ones, all drifting in different directions. The remaining swarm vessels seemed to panic. Without the command ship's coordinating intelligence, they lost cohesion. Some continued fighting. Others tried to flee. A few simply stopped moving entirely as if their pilots didn't know what to do anymore. All ships continue engagement, Chen ordered. Don't let any of them escape to regroup. The human fleet pressed the attack, systematically destroying the remaining swarm vessels. It took another hour to finish the job, but when it was done, orbital space around Valora Prime was clear. Chen surveyed the debris field on her displays, then opened a channel to the Valerian Command Center. Valerian Command. This is Admiral Chen. We've cleared the orbital space, but you've still got swarm forces on the ground. We can help with that too if you want. The response came quickly, Velthas himself speaking this time. Admiral Chen, we have no words to express our gratitude. But ground combat? We have no soldiers, no military ground forces at all. How can you possibly? We have soldiers, Minister, Chen interrupted. Lots of them. We're a species from a death world, remember? We know how to fight on the ground. We've had plenty of practice. There was a long silence. Then Velthas spoke again. Then yes, Admiral. Please help us. We will provide whatever support we can. Good. We'll begin landing operations within the hour. Chen out. She turned to her bridge crew. Get me Colonel Martinez. Tell him to prep the Marines for ground deployment. Hostile environment, low gravity, methane atmosphere. Full combat loadout. Yes, ma'am. Chen looked at the planet below where swarm forces were still overrunning cities. She thought about Earth, about humanity's long history of warfare, about all the lessons learned in blood and fire on a world that tried to kill them every day. The swarm thought they were predators. They were about to learn what real predators looked like. The drop pods fell through Valora Prime's atmosphere like meteorites, trailing fire as they descended. Inside one of them, Sergeant Maria Reyes checked her combat suit systems for the 3rd time. Everything showed green. The suit was sealed tight, ready for the methane-rich atmosphere outside. 2 minutes to landing, the pilot's voice crackled through her helmet. Target zone is hot. Swarm forces confirmed in the area. Copy that, Reyes replied. First platoon, weapons check. We hit the ground ready to fight. Around her in the cramped pod, 20 Marines confirmed their readiness. Each wore a heavy combat exosuit designed for high-gravity operations. On Valora Prime's low gravity, they would move like tanks. Fast, powerful, and nearly unstoppable. The pod slammed into the ground hard enough to crack the crystalline street beneath it. The doors blew outward explosively, and First Platoon deployed into the ruins of what had been a beautiful city. Reyes took in the scene quickly. Crystal buildings now broken and shattered, Valerian civilians fleeing in panic, their translucent bodies flashing with fear, and the swarm everywhere like giant cockroaches tearing through the streets. Contact front, someone called out. A wave of swarm warriors charged toward them, each one the size of a horse with multiple legs and snapping mandibles. There were at least 50 of them. Open fire, Reyes ordered calmly. The Marines didn't need to be told twice. Automatic weapons roared to life, sending streams of armor-piercing rounds into the charging mass. The swarm warriors began to fall, their chitinous armor no match for human ammunition, but they kept coming, driven by instinct and the hive mind. Reyes aimed her rifle at the nearest warrior and squeezed the trigger. 3 rounds, center mass. The creature stumbled and fell. She moved to the next target. Shoot, next target, shoot. She had done this 1,000 times in training and dozens of times in real combat on various human colonies. But this was different. This was alien ground, alien enemies and alien civilians watching them fight. A swarm warrior broke through the line and lunged at Private Chen. The Marine reacted instantly, dropping his rifle and drawing his combat knife. In Earth's gravity, the warrior would have overpowered him easily. But here, with the exosuit's strength and the low gravity, Chen grabbed the creature by its mandibles and threw it 10 meters into the air. It came down on top of a broken building and didn't get back up. Nice throw, Chen, Reyes called out. Thanks, Sarge. These things are lighter than they look. The first wave was down in less than 30 seconds. The Marines reloaded and moved forward, following their tactical maps toward the center of the city where the main swarm nest was located. A Valerian civilian stepped out from behind cover, staring at them with what Reyes assumed was shock. The alien's body flashed with multiple colors. You killed them all, the translation came through her suit's computer. So quickly. Stay in cover, civilian, Reyes replied. There's more coming. Is there anyone else alive in this area? The Valerian pointed toward a large building. Shelter. 300 people. Chen Rodriguez, secure that shelter. Rest of the platoon on me. We're clearing the street. As they moved, more Valerians emerged from hiding, watching the humans with something that looked like awe mixed with fear. Reyes understood. They probably looked like monsters in these suits, carrying weapons designed to kill efficiently, moving through their city like it was a battlefield. Which, to be fair, it was. Another Valerian approached, this one wearing some kind of official uniform. The translation software identified it as emergency services. I am Kyrith, the alien said. I coordinate rescue efforts. Can you help evacuate the Eastern District? The swarm has surrounded it. Reyes pulled up her tactical map and marked the location. That's 2 clicks from here. We can get there, but I can't promise we can hold it for long. How many civilian? 5,000, maybe more. That's a lot of people. Reyes thought for a moment. You want to come with us? You know the city, and you can help coordinate with your people. But it's dangerous. Very dangerous. Kyrith's colors shifted to a deep blue. I will come. My people need help. All right then, stay close and keep your head down. Reyes added Kyrith's translator signature to her squad network so the alien could hear their communications. Command, this is 1st Platoon. We're moving to the Eastern District to evacuate civilians, requesting air support. Copy that, 1st Platoon, Colonel Martinez replied. Sending 2 gunships your way. Ite 5 minutes. The platoon moved through the streets with Kyrith guiding them along the fastest routes. They encountered 3 more swarm patrols on the way, and each time the Marines cut through them with practiced efficiency. Kyrith watched the humans fight with growing amazement. These beings moved like nothing Kyrith had ever seen. They didn't hesitate. They didn't show fear. They saw an enemy and destroyed it immediately, then moved on to the next threat without pause. And they did it all while breathing an atmosphere that should have killed them, moving in suits that must have weighed hundreds of kilograms. How do you do this? Kyrith asked Reyes as they advanced. How do you fight so well? Practice, Reyes replied simply. On Earth, everything wants to kill you. Weather, animals, diseases, other humans. You learn to fight or you die. Simple as that. But you are not fighting for your own world. You are fighting for mine. Why? Reyes shot a swarm scout before answering. Because you needed help. Because it's the right thing to do, and because these bugs need to learn that they can't just take whatever they want. They reached the Eastern District to find it surrounded by swarm forces. Thousands of the creatures swarmed around the perimeter, trying to break through the hastily constructed barriers that trapped the civilians inside. That's a lot of bugs, Private Chen observed. Yeah, Reyes agreed. Good thing we brought friends. The gunships arrived right on schedule. Sleek attack craft that dove from the sky like predatory birds. Their weapons opened up, sending rockets and cannon fire into the swarm masses. Explosions rippled through the enemy forces, and the creatures scattered in confusion. 1st Platoon, push forward, Reyes ordered. Get to those civilians. The Marines charged, their exosuits allowing them to leap over obstacles and cover ground at incredible speed. The swarm tried to reform their lines, but the humans were already among them, firing at point-blank range and using their suit's strength to literally tear through opposition. Reyes kicked down a crystal wall that blocked their path, then shot 3 swarm warriors that came through the opening. Beside her, Chen used his combat knife to slash through a warrior's legs, then finished it with his rifle. The rest of the platoon spread out, creating a corridor of fire that the swarm couldn't cross. Kyrith, tell your people to move. Now Kyrith broadcast on all Valerian emergency frequencies, and the trapped civilians began to emerge from their shelter. They moved quickly, their light bodies allowing them to practically glide along the ground. The Marines maintained their defensive line, pouring fire into any swarm forces that tried to approach. One of the gunships took a hit from a swarm biocannon, trailing smoke as it pulled up and away. The other continued its attack runs, buying the Marines precious time. Civilians are clear, Chen called out. All accounted for. Fall back to the extraction point, Reyes ordered. Leapfrog formation. Go, go, go. The platoon fell back in sections, half firing while the other half moved, then switching. It was a textbook withdrawal, executed perfectly even in an alien city under heavy fire. Kyrith stayed close to Reyes, watching how the humans worked together like parts of a single organism. They reached the extraction point, a large plaza where transport ships could land. The area was already secured by 2nd Platoon, who had cleared it while 1st Platoon rescued the civilians. The Valerian civilians began boarding the transports, but many of them stopped to watch the humans. These strange, terrifying, wonderful beings who had come from nowhere to save them. Kyrith approached Reyes as the sergeant took a moment to reload her weapon. "Your people are warriors," Kyrith said. "True warriors. We have stories of such beings from ancient times, but I thought they were just myths." Reyes shrugged. "We're just doing our job. Somebody's got to stand up to bullies like the Swarm. On my world, we believed that violence was the mark of primitive species, that civilized beings had evolved past such things. Maybe you evolved in the wrong direction," Reyes replied not unkindly. "Being peaceful is great, but only if you can defend that peace. Otherwise, you're just prey waiting to be eaten." A massive explosion rocked the city as human artillery struck a swarm nest several kilometers away. Kyrith flinched, but Reyes didn't even blink. "Come on," Reyes said. "Let's get you on a transport. You've done good work today. Your people are lucky to have someone like you." "I think my people are lucky to have someone like you," Kyrith replied. "All of you." As they walked toward the transport, Kyrith looked at the human soldiers around them. These Deathworlders, these survivors of a nightmare planet. They had come across the stars to fight for people they had never met, against an enemy that wasn't theirs. And they were winning. For the first time since the Swarm arrived, Kyrith felt something new. Not just hope, but certainty. With allies like these, Valora Prime would survive. Admiral Chen stood in the Indomitable's briefing room, studying the holographic display with growing concern. The orbital battle was won. The ground forces were pushing the Swarm back on every front, but intelligence had uncovered something troubling. "Explain this again." "Doctor," she said to the human xenobiologist who had been analyzing the Swarm's behavior. Dr. Amari manipulated the hologram, highlighting a massive organic structure in high orbit. "This is the Swarm's primary hive ship, Admiral. We damaged it in the initial engagement, but we didn't destroy it, and it's regenerating. How fast? At current rates, it will be fully functional in 36 hours. But that's not the worst part." Amari zoomed in on a section of the ship. "We're detecting energy buildups here, here, and here. We believe it's preparing to send a faster-than-light signal." "To call for reinforcements," Chen finished grimly. "Exactly. If that signal gets out, we could see 10 times as many swarm ships arriving within a week. The Valerians can't survive another attack like this, and frankly, neither can we. Not with the forces we have here." Chen studied the hive ship carefully. It was massive, mostly organic with some biomechanical components. The kind of target that conventional weapons struggled against because it could heal itself faster than they could damage it. "What do we need to kill it permanently?" she asked. "We need to destroy it from the inside," Dr. Amari replied. "Target the core organs that coordinate regeneration. But there's another option." She pulled up a file on her tablet. "My team has been studying the swarm's biology. We've engineered a pathogen specifically designed to attack their cellular structure. It spreads rapidly through organic material and breaks down their ability to function as a collective organism." Chen looked at her. "You're talking about biological warfare." "Yes, ma'am. I know it's controversial, but..." "Controversial is an understatement, Doctor. Biological weapons are banned under about 50 different human laws, and I'm guessing the galactic community has similar prohibitions." "They do," Amari confirmed. "It's actually one of the few things that can get a species permanently banned from galactic civilization. Using biological weapons is considered the ultimate taboo." Chen walked to the window, looking down at Valora Prime. She could see the lights of cities, some intact, some dark where the swarm had attacked. She thought about the Valerians, about their crystalline cities and their peaceful nature, about Shalveth and Velthus and all the millions of civilians who had done nothing wrong except exist in the path of the swarm. "Admiral, we don't have time for a conventional assault," Amari pressed. "That hive ship will regenerate and call for help. We need to act now," Chen made her decision. "Prepare the pathogen. Get me Colonel Martinez and Sergeant Reyes, we're going in." An hour later, Reyes sat in another briefing room, this time with 20 other Marines and Kyrith. who had insisted on volunteering for the mission. "This is a suicide mission," Reyes said bluntly to the Valerian. "You understand that, right?" Kareth's colors shifted to a determined red. "I understand. But it is my world you are fighting for. I will not ask you to risk everything while I hide in safety." Reyes nodded with approval. "All right then. Welcome to the squad." Colonel Martinez brought up the tactical display. "Here's the situation. The hive ship is approximately 5 kilometers long and 2 kilometers wide. It's mostly hollow, filled with organic corridors and chambers. Intelligence suggests the core coordination center is here, in the central mass. How do we get in?" someone asked. "We board it," Martinez replied. "Breaching pods will punch through the outer hull and deploy directly into the interior. From there you fight your way to the core, plant the charges and the pathogen dispersal units, and get out. Simple." "Simple," Reyes muttered. "Right. You'll have 30 minutes from initial breach to extraction," Martinez continued. "After that, the hive ship's immune system will fully activate, and you'll be facing antibodies the size of tanks along with the regular warrior drones." "Questions?" Private Chen raised his hand. "Sir, just to be clear, we're about to use biological weapons against the swarm. What happens if the galactic community finds out?" Martinez looked at Admiral Chen, who had entered the room. "Then we deal with the consequences," Chen said firmly. "I'm not going to let millions of Valerians die because we're worried about breaking rules. The swarm doesn't follow rules. They destroy entire civilizations. Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire." She paused. "But I want everyone here to understand what we're doing. This is biological warfare. It's ugly, it's controversial, and it might make us pariahs in the galactic community. If anyone wants to opt out, do it now. No judgment, no one moved." Reyes looked around at her fellow Marines and felt a surge of pride. They all knew the stakes. They all understood the moral complexity, and they were all willing to do what needed to be done. "Good," Chen said. "Then let's go kill a hive ship." The breaching pods launched from the Indomitable, small armored craft that accelerated toward the hive ship at maximum speed. Point defense cannons tried to shoot them down, but most of the pods made it through. Reyes braced herself as their pod impacted the organic hull. Cutting lasers activated automatically, burning through the thick outer layer. Then the explosive bolts fired, blowing a hole inward, and the squad deployed into a nightmare. The interior of the hive ship was like being inside a living creature, because that's exactly what it was. The walls pulsed with movement. Strange fluids dripped from the ceiling. The air was thick with organic particles that the suit's filters worked overtime to keep out. "This is disgusting," Chen said. "Stay focused," Reyes replied. "We've got a job to do." "Kareth, you okay?" The Valerian's colors were flickering with what Reyes had learned to recognize as nausea, but Kareth's voice was steady. "I am functional. Let us proceed." They moved through the organic corridors, following the path that intelligence had mapped out. Every few minutes they encountered swarm warriors. The creatures seemed confused to find intruders actually inside their hive ship, but they attacked nonetheless. The Marines cut them down with practiced efficiency, but the fighting slowed their progress. Reyes checked her chronometer. They had been inside for 12 minutes already. "We need to move faster," she said. "Combat pace, people. Shoot and move." They pushed deeper into the ship, the corridors becoming narrower and more twisted. The walls began to pulse more rapidly, and Reyes realized the ship was becoming aware of their presence. "The immune system is activating." Dr. Amari's voice crackled through the radio. "You've got 15 minutes, maybe less." They entered a massive chamber easily 100 meters across. In the center floated a huge pulsing organ that glowed with bioluminescence. Tendrils of organic material connected it to every surface. "That's it," Kareth said. "The coordination center. I can feel it. It's like the ship is thinking through that organ." "Then let's give it something to think about," Reyes replied. "Plant the charges." Marines, defensive perimeter. Nothing gets through. The demolitions team moved quickly, placing shaped charges at key points around the chamber. Dr. Amari's team set up the pathogen dispersal units, large canisters that would spray the engineered virus throughout the ship's organic systems. The walls began to ripple. Then they opened, and things emerged. The antibodies were exactly as large as Martinez had warned. Massive creatures that looked like distorted versions of the swarm warriors, but bigger and more aggressive. "Contact all sides," someone shouted. The chamber erupted into chaos. The Marines formed a circle around the demolitions team, pouring fire into the attacking antibodies. The creatures were tough, taking multiple hits to bring down. More kept coming, squeezing through openings in the walls that appeared faster than the Marines could cover them. Reyes shot one antibody in what she hoped was its head, then shot two more that tried to flank her position. Beside her, Kyrith was actually fighting, using some kind of crystal shard weapon that the Valerian had picked up from somewhere. It wasn't very effective, but the effort counted. "Charges set," the demolition sergeant called out. "Pathogen dispersal units activated." "Everyone out now," Reyes ordered. Back to the extraction point. They ran through the corridors they had mapped on the way in, but the ship was fighting them now. Walls closed off passages. Floors became slippery with secreted fluids. More antibodies appeared from every direction. Chen went down when something dropped from the ceiling onto him. Reyes and two others pulled it off and dragged him back to his feet. His suit was breached, but the emergency sealant had activated. "I'm good," he gasped. "Keep moving." They burst out of the hive ship through the hole their pod had made, tumbling into the vacuum of space. The extraction shuttle was waiting, its bay doors open. "Go, go, go!" Reyes shouted, pushing Marines toward the shuttle. Kyrith stumbled, and Reyes grabbed the Valerian, pulling them both toward safety. They tumbled through the bay doors just as the pilot began accelerating away from the hive ship. "Everyone accounted for?" Reyes asked, doing a head count. "All present," Martinez replied from the cockpit. "Hang on, people. This is going to be spectacular." The charges detonated in sequence, tearing through the hive ship's core organs. But it was the pathogen that did the real damage. It spread through the ship's organic systems like wildfire. The Valerian High Council chamber was designed for peace. Soft light filtered through crystal walls, creating rainbow patterns that should have been calming. But today, nothing could calm the tension in the room. Minister Veltha stood at the center podium, addressing the assembled leaders of his world, and several representatives from other galactic species who had arrived after the fighting ended. Admiral Chen stood beside him, still in her uniform, representing humanity for the first time in an official capacity. "The swarm is defeated," Velthus announced. "Thanks to the intervention of the human species, our world survives. We owe them a debt that can never be repaid." The Valerian Council members flashed colors of agreement and gratitude. But the galactic representatives showed different reactions. A tall, elegant being from the Arxian Collective, the very allies who had failed to respond to the distress call, stood up. "This is indeed fortunate," Ambassador Thelnak said, his voice smooth and diplomatic. "However, we must address certain irregularities in how this conflict was resolved. We have reviewed sensor data from the battle, and there are serious concerns." "What kind of concerns?" Chen asked, her voice neutral. "Your species used biological weapons, Admiral. Against the swarm, yes, but biological warfare nonetheless. This is strictly forbidden under galactic law. No civilized species engages in such practices." The room fell silent. Every being present knew the laws. Biological weapons were taboo, a line that no one crossed. Until now. "The swarm was regenerating," Chen replied calmly. "They were about to call for reinforcements. If we had waited to use conventional weapons, millions more Valerians would have died, and we might have lost the battle entirely. We made a choice. A choice that violates the most fundamental laws of warfare," another representative spoke up. This one from the Talshir Federation. "By using such weapons, you have marked yourselves as a dangerous species, one that cannot be trusted to follow established rules. Rules that would have gotten everyone killed." Chen shot back. "Tell me, Ambassador, where were your fleets when the Valerians called for help? Where were the Arxians? The Talshir? Any of you?" Uncomfortable silence greeted her questions. "That's what I thought," Chen continued. "You have rules about warfare, about what's acceptable and what's not. That's fine when you're fighting other civilized species who follow the same rules, but the swarm doesn't care about your laws. They just want to consume and destroy, so we did what we had to do to stop them. The law exists for a reason," Thelnax insisted. "Once biological weapons are normalized, where does it end? Today you use them against the swarm. Tomorrow against anyone you disagree with? We're not monsters," Chen said firmly. "We used those weapons as a last resort, in a situation where millions of lives were at stake. We're not going to go around infecting species we don't like, but we're also not going to apologize for saving Valora Prime." A new voice spoke up from the back of the chamber. "Perhaps we are asking the wrong questions." Everyone turned to see Kyrith stepping forward. The young Valerian had been invited to the council as a witness to the human military actions. "Please continue," Velthus encouraged. I fought alongside the humans, Kyrith said. I watched them risk their lives for people they had never met. I saw them use those biological weapons, yes, but I also saw them evacuate our civilians. I saw them protect our cities. I saw them bleed for us. Kyrith's colors shifted to a deep, sincere blue. The question is not whether they broke our laws. The question is whether our laws are adequate for the reality we face. You cannot be suggesting we abandon the prohibition on biological weapons, Thelnax said, shocked. I am suggesting that we created these laws during a time of peace, Kyrith replied. We have been peaceful for so long that we forgot how to defend ourselves. The humans come from a world that never let them forget. Perhaps that is why they survived where we nearly perished. Another council member spoke up, an elderly Valerian named Chastel. I have read the reports from our military analysts. The humans fought with weapons we consider primitive. Kinetic projectiles, chemical explosives, physical force. And yet they won decisively where we failed. This suggests that our understanding of warfare is incomplete, or that they are simply more violent than us, the Tal Shir representative countered, more willing to use force to solve problems. We come from a difficult world, Chen acknowledged. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world for good reason. High gravity, violent weather, aggressive predators, deadly diseases. We evolved to survive in that environment. That means we're tough, yes. We're good at fighting, but it also means we understand the value of cooperation, of working together to overcome threats. Because on Earth, if you don't cooperate, you die. She looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives. Humanity didn't come here looking for a fight. We came because someone needed help. We answered a distress call from a species we'd never met. Traveled across space to fight an enemy that wasn't threatening our world. We did it because it was the right thing to do. If that makes us dangerous in your eyes, then so be it. Veltha stepped forward. I believe I speak for all Valerians when I say that humanity has proven itself to be not dangerous but dependable. They came when our allies did not. They fought when we could not. And they won when we were losing. He turned to face the other representatives directly. I am proposing that Valora Prime enter into a mutual defense pact with humanity. Let them be our allies formally and officially. That is premature, Thelnax protested. Humanity has not been evaluated for membership in the galactic community. They have not undergone the proper integration procedures. They have no established diplomatic relations, and they have demonstrated a willingness to violate our most sacred laws. Then perhaps your procedures need to change, Veltha said firmly. My world was dying. Your procedures would have had us fill out forms and wait for committee meetings while the swarm consumed us. The humans acted. That is what matters. The debate continued for hours. Some representatives supported the Valerians. Others argued for caution, for restrictions on human military capabilities, for oversight and control. Chen listened to it all with growing frustration. Finally, she held up a hand for silence. Let me make something clear, she said. Humanity is not asking for permission to exist. We're not asking for approval of our methods. We're here because we chose to help. If the galactic community wants to work with us, great. We're open to diplomatic relations, trade agreements, cultural exchange, all of it. But we're not going to let anyone else dictate how we defend ourselves or our allies. That is an unacceptable position, Thelnax said. You must submit to galactic authority if you wish to be part of our civilization. Then I guess we're not part of your civilization, Chen replied. We'll do just fine on our own. She turned to leave, but Velthas called out to her. Admiral Chen, please wait. Chen paused. You have given my people a chance to survive, Velthas said. For that, we are eternally grateful. Whatever the galactic community decides, Valora Prime stands with humanity. We formally request a mutual defense pact. We offer trade, cultural exchange, and friendship. And we will speak on your behalf in all galactic forums. Chen smiled for the first time since the meeting began. We accept, Minister, and we appreciate it. 2 weeks later, Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable preparing to leave Valoran space. The planet below was recovering. Cities were being rebuilt. The swarm remnants had been cleared out. And Valerian engineers were studying human weapons technology with fascination and a bit of horror. Admiral were receiving multiple distress calls, the communications officer reported. 3 different systems in this sector alone, all reporting various threats. Pirates, territorial disputes, and what looks like another swarm incursion. Chen looked at the tactical display. So many calls for help, so many species that had forgotten how to defend themselves in their centuries of peace. Plot courses to each location, she ordered. We'll assess which one needs the most urgent assistance. Ma'am, we're supposed to be heading back to Earth to report on the mission. We will, Chen replied. Eventually. But right now, it looks like this part of the galaxy needs someone willing to respond to distress calls. Might as well be us. Commander Park approached her. You know what this means, right? We're setting a precedent. Humanity as the galaxy's enforcers. Not enforcers, Chen corrected. More like guardians. Someone has to stand up to the bullies. Someone has to be willing to fight when everyone else forgot how. The galactic community isn't going to like it. They don't have to like it. They just have to accept that we're here and we're not going away. Chen smiled slightly. Besides, it's what humans do. We see someone in trouble, we help. It's in our nature. On Valora Prime, Kyrith stood with Sergeant Reyes at the memorial they had built for the Marines who died in the fighting. Crystal spires reached toward the sky, engraved with names in both English and Valerian script. Will you return? Kyrith asked. Probably, Reyes replied. Earth wants to establish an embassy here. And we're setting up training programs, teaching your people basic self-defense, how to fight if they need to. Many of my people resist this idea. They say it will make us violent like humans.